Hello everyone, welcome to Herald Global. Joining us today, Mr. Aneesh Gera, an internationally acclaimed music producer and DJ, has made waves in global electronic music scene with his chart-topping tracks and groundbreaking remixes. Known for pushing creative boundaries, Aneesh has placed India on world map for electronic dance music, inspiring a new generation of artists while staying rooted in his Goan identity. Let's deep dive into his journey. I am Saimik and you're watching Mindspeak. Let me begin by asking you, what inspired you to pursue a career in music?
Oh, that's a good question. Not sure if I should be confessing this on camera, but I was very young actually, and I went into my first nightclub. I think I was 11 or 12 or something like that with my mum. Yeah, we went out for a night, and I saw this DJ in this room, because you walk into a nightclub back then and you look for the band and you couldn't find the band, and there's 200 people being entertained by one guy, and I found that quite empowering. That was kind of what sowed the first seed, and yeah, just went from there really.
Okay, so did you have any instrument during your high school? Any particular favorite instrument you used to play?
Yes and no. Instrument, yes. I did learn the guitar extremely badly. Still can't play. I don't think I could play a chord on the guitar at all at the moment. So that should hopefully answer your question. So no, it wasn't a traditional musician's upbringing at all for me. I absolutely hated it as a kid.
You're the first Indian EDM artist to release on Beatport Top 100. How did that happen? I mean, the feeling must be amazing.
I'd like to correct that actually. What it was is I was the first person of Indian origin, if I'm not wrong, to have hit the US Billboard Dance Charts. Okay, sure. Right? So Beatport is a website where it's global charts for dance music. There was quite a few people before me, but for US Billboard, yeah, I was the first person from Indian origin, or so they tell me. And that was a huge career milestone, definitely. Very surreal. To be honest with you, was not the plan. The strategy for that release was a record that I wrote in the UK during my time in the UK. And we actually wrote this record with a lady called Lisa Williams from Newcastle, who did the vocals for me. Okay. And this was 2014, I think I wrote the record. Kind of like a deep house, mainstream crossover kind of tune, commercially appealing. And I'm quite strategic, so I had a couple of record labels who I really wanted to get this signed with, and everybody rejected us, which is a very good insight into the music industry. So sitting there going, okay, and I've kind of got really high standards. So if you don't hit them, then I go, okay, that's fine, no problem. I'd rather not compromise on the quality of my work or my partners or my record labels, rather than do something at half-mast, right? So I said, fine, that's it. Okay, it's not found the right home. We bin the track, and we don't release it at all. And we knew it was good, man. It was a little upsetting, because the music industry is full of rejection, so we're used to taking punches. But this one kind of hit hard. And then full credit to Lisa, because Lisa Williams came back to me maybe 4 or 5 months after I decided we're not going to release it, and then said, look, we've got this record label in LA called Carrillo Music that's really interested in the record. They want to do this, that, and the other. And I was very skeptical, to be honest with you. I did a bit of research, and I found one of my dance music heroes called Eddie Amador, who was signed to the label. Eddie is a Puerto Rican American who I've been a huge fan of since before I started, writing as a producer. So I went, you know what? Eddie's on the label. That's a lot of credibility. Let's go with it. And one thing led to another. We signed very quickly. The track kind of exploded. We got great feedback. And then suddenly we got a call about very, very quickly, maybe 3 weeks in, saying, listen, you've hit US Billboard. And we were like maybe number 88 or 89. And I was like, this is the biggest chart on the planet, right? So I was elated just to be at number 88. And then the thing kept climbing. We hit top 50 in 2 weeks, and then we peaked at number 24. And that was quite surreal, because in the same 5 spaces up and down, you had Coldplay, Beyonce, U2, Ariana Grande, Avicii. It was a good bunch of people to be with.
Did it change your career path after this success?
Yes, it did. It certainly did. Not in the traditional way that you would sort of expect. I wish it had sort of blown us up more, but it gave us a lot of credibility. And to be very honest with you, Saimik, the music industry is such a fickle space world over. You're kind of ranked or judged by 1, 2, 3 accolades, and that's about it. And unfortunately, all those accolades have sort of are sitting in the back seat now. Now everything's about social media,
Yes.
right? Which, in my opinion, has nothing to do with it, right? It's like being interviewed. It's like you interviewing a cook for a restaurant, saying, "Send me your Instagram pictures." It makes no sense. So unfortunately, it didn't blow us up in the traditional sense. But what I like to use as my career milestones is what it means for you personally, right? So for me, I knew what that battle was. I knew what that journey was. I knew how much we had put into that record to write it. And look, man, I'm just a kid from Goa, right? I'm from Donapal, right? You don't hear of very many people in Asia doing deep house music, let alone this was 10 years ago. Got into those circles, and that kind of acceptance from the public, from your peers, from people like that. That was the main takeaway I took from it. And to circle back to your last question, I mentioned Eddie Armado, who was signed to this label. So it's things like this for me that were the bigger wins, because Eddie Armado reached out to me and said, "Look, Aneesh, love this record. Hi, I don't know you at all." Right. And just a random email. And those are the huge wins, that you have someone of that caliber who's just going to reach out and say, "Hi, this is amazing." And he asked if he could remix it. And I was like, and I almost fell off my chair. I was, jumping around my studio like a nutter because of getting this email from Eddie. And then Eddie went on to remix Flashback Rewind, which is a track. And then fast forward 4 months after that, Eddie gets nominated for a Grammy. So that is the timeline, right? So that for me was the bigger accolade and the bigger win personally, rather than, okay, you're the first Indian to do something like that, or you're the first person from India to do something like that. I don't look at it like a race. So I'd rather run the marathon.
You're from Goa. In your initial days during your career, what are the challenges you faced?
Oh, mate. I mean, I started so long ago now that, I feel like it was back in the Stone Age. But yeah, I started DJing in 2001, which was the start into my music career. So at that time in Goa, we didn't have many options. You had David's Super Club Tito's just doing amazing work and was kind of the pinnacle for, I honestly would say, nightlife in the country, right? At that point, because you still had most of the country coming to Goa for our phenomenal music culture and our nightlife culture, but you didn't have much else. Right, we had the trance scene really doing very well up north, but for a budding DJ like us, there wasn't A, too many options, and B, the industry, I mean, if I could call it that, was rather frowned upon. If you at that time in 2001 went home and said, "Hi, Mom, I want to be a DJ," it wasn't received very well. And more importantly, in terms of society, at that point, if if I can be so bold, it's like, if all your prospects had failed and had not worked out, right? And then you were like, okay, at least you can be a bartender. And not to knock bartenders, because that's a very noble profession, but again, perception wise. And if you failed at that, then it was like, okay, fine, just be a DJ. That was the kind of route that was sort of taken. So it wasn't very well received at all. It wasn't considered, there wasn't any pride attached to it. There was absolutely no fame whatsoever. And just to prove my point, when you went to a nightclub or a bar or a music venue, and during those days, even up till 2005, you couldn't find the DJ anywhere you looked, because he was hiding under the stairs or in a cupboard that you didn't want anyone to see him. That's how the venues were designed. And now it's completely flipped, right? Now the focal point's the DJ. So that will tell you that at that point, it was not very well received. So I think that was the biggest challenge that, and I was very proud to be a DJ. Extremely. It's all I ever really wanted to be at that point. Was I just love playing music. So a lot of personal challenges that way, but kind of didn't bother me much. So yeah, that was the world at that time.
You must have been a rebel kid, starting out as a DJ at that point of time.
You know what? That's very refreshing because I've done a lot of interviews in my time, and no one has ever said that. And I think you're quite spot on. Yeah, absolutely. I will very proudly wear that badge. Definitely the rebel kid.
How was the experience of collaborating with the legendary Ashanti?
Oh, Ashanti was one of the first milestones in my career. It was a bit of a surreal moment because at that point, Ashanti is probably one of the biggest pop stars in the world. This is
True.
2003. I was a baby. I think I was 19 at the time, if I remember the time of the shoot. So, absolute kid. And I auditioned to be in this movie which was directed by Gurinder Chadha, called Bride and Prejudice, which was shot in Osran in Bagator. And so they just said, look, there's a music scene, blah blah, and you need to be DJing. And I was like, okay, cool, like no worries. Spent 4 nights doing it. And then I realized Ashanti was in it, so that was very cool. There wasn't too much of interaction. I spoke to her maybe for a good 15 minutes. At that point in India, Aishwarya Rai was the lead doing a Hollywood film which came out of Britain. So I think that there was more hype about that. But yeah, for me it was very, very cool to see and work with her at that point.
Okay, describe your favorite venue for performing.
Venue is easy for me, actually. Venue is Ministry of Sound, London, by far, always. I'm not sure if that name means much to a lot of people, but the Ministry of Sound is, in my opinion, the world's most iconic nightclub, which has been going for, if I'm not wrong, over 30 years. In the scene in Goa, there were a few of us really huge music fans who were either DJs or friends of DJs. And people would go abroad. You'd go to London, you go to America, you go to Europe, and you would come back with a CD called the Annual, which was the Ministry of Sound CD. Right? For all the kids watching, just Google what a CD is, right? And then you would, and that was sort of the world's standard for the entire year. This is the best music, the best dance music in the world, and that was from Ministry of Sound. And the nightclub is just beyond legendary. So for me to be invited to play there was in my performing career, I think it was one of in my top 3. But then what led that on to was we ended up becoming a resident for Ministry of Sound. I was playing for them 4 times a year, and then I own a little record label, and we started doing our own record label nights at the Ministry of Sound. So there was a lot of marriage between us. I started touring the brand. I brought them home to Goa. We toured them all over the world. So that was, Ministry is very special to me.
How do you approach creating a track from the scratch?
Okay, nice question. For me, like I said, I'm a bit of a geek and I'm quite methodical. Do a lot of research, listen to a lot of interviews, and speak to a lot of my heroes. So I learned this from a gentleman called BT, Brian Tronso, who's a 3-time Grammy nominee, kind of like a trance pioneer legend. And what Brian, in an interview, and I had the pleasure of working with him a few times, said is technology is so advanced right now, especially in the music world, that it can hinder your songwriting process. So simplify it, which is kind of what I try to do with most things. So I either write your song on a guitar. I think I've already answered and told you how good I am with a guitar, or a piano, which is the one thing that I can play, the MIDI keyboard and keys in the studio. So when I'm approaching, I'm just writing melody from a very basic point of view to get the original hook, the original elements down. Then I would take it into a software, which then I can experiment with tonality, sound design, etc., etc. So my approach usually when it comes to melody is to go as simple and basic and organic as you can, get the foundation right, and then build from there. I'm a big foundation guy. So that's usually my approach. The only time when you ever want to flip that, or whenever I personally want to flip that, is if I'm building a groove first. So a groove would be your drums, your percussion. And again, it's very important to have a plan before you start, because technology is so advanced right now. You'd wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to write a reggae song, accidentally, stumble upon a nice distorted guitar synth, with a lot of overdrive, and suddenly you've ended up with a rock song, which is great, and there's no problem with that. But is that what I started with? Was that my initial intention? I'm not too sure. So I allow a little time for the discovery process to happen as well. But I like to have a bit of a path that, hey, this is where I want to go and what I want to try and achieve. So that's usually how I write.
Okay. So does it depend on the audience as well?
No. Again, I can only answer for me, not at all. Yeah, sure. And again, the more and more that you would ask musicians and especially successful artists this, the answer will always be no. We live in a very, very good time for music right now, where you do have to conform to a certain extent, but you can really express yourself and push the boundaries out. That's one of the advantages of social media, that you are connected to a lot of people. So the good thing is you will always find a small little audience who could appreciate what you're doing. And that's genuine and that's true, which is quite sorely lacking in the music industry and social media. So if you can get that across, I think you're gold.
So you mentioned Eddie. Anyone apart from him whom you admire?
In terms of, okay, my overall greatest hero is someone called Quincy Jones, who we just lost last year. Without a doubt, the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest person in music that lived in our era. I mean, the guy's won more Grammys than I think anybody else has ever won. And, he started off as a violin player, as a kid, born in Chicago, couldn't make ends meet kind of thing. Fell in love. I beg your pardon, it wasn't violin. I think it was trumpet. He used to play trumpet, sorry. And then got into an orchestra. And then he got into, worked his way up and started playing for someone called Count Basie. I'm really going back here, which is my music history. So this is, if I'm not wrong, I'm going to say 1950s. Okay. And then slowly, grew. And then in the 1950s, the biggest person on the planet, or one of the biggest people on the planet, was Frank Sinatra. And that's who Quincy Jones ended up working with, to the point where Frank Sinatra had this legendary ring, which he gave Quincy Jones before he died. That will tell you the level of friendship and camaraderie and respect they had for one another. And then what interested me most about him is that he kept reinventing himself. So he started as a musician, did that, joined a big band, joined an orchestra. Then he started composing, and then he started editing and arranging, right? And I was like, wow. And when you're a triple threat like that, which is composer, arranger, editor, I mean, that's everything, right? So, and then in the 60s, this African-American gentleman started touring Europe, funding his own tours, was in Europe for years, if I'm not wrong. Successful, highs, lows, failures, came back, tried more projects, and then, discovered a couple of very unknown people like Michael Jackson, developed him, turned his attention into TV, discovered, again, an unknown lady called Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith, and, this list just goes on. So from a creative point of view, to see someone constantly reinvent and create this phenomenal legacy of music, very, very inspiring. So he would be my number one hero. And, for me, hero-wise, it goes from Quincy Jones all the way down to one of the first clubs I ever worked in, which was Club Extreme in Panjim, where, we had this lovely little, this bouncer dude who would always look after me because I was so young, getting into the nightclub, and always put his arm around me and going, "Are you okay? Anyone ever hassling you, you come and tell me." And I was just a kid at the time, and I would look at him and go, "Thanks, man." I kind of needed that at the time. So I've had a lot of heroes along the way, from all ends, from high to low.
Which is your favorite club in Goa?
Goa is my favorite place to play. Period, all over the world, anywhere in the world. I mean, I've been very fortunate to play all over, but Goa is my favorite place. Club in Goa, I'd have to have a few. The old Paradiso in Anjuna, which I think shut in 2003 or 4. Club X, definitely. Club Extreme, because those were my formative years. I feel like that was the foundation for me to really build on. Lido's in Goa was I never played Lido's, but was very formative for me. Mambo's, man, legendary. Right. And every reiteration of it, old school Mambos from, early 2000s, and the way David beautifully revamped it, and then its evolution, and it's still going. It's still one of the best places to go and have a party in Goa. So I think those would be my top 3.
Okay, let's talk about the evolution of EDM in India itself. It has grown so rapidly. What are your thoughts on it?
Phenomenal. It's great. I mean, this is why we got into it in the first place, because all of us, I consider us old schoolers. I got into it very young. So most of my peers are about 10 years older than me. So I'm kind of the baby of the old guys, if that makes sense. And we saw this from day one, right? But the difference is we didn't see any of the glitz or the glamour or the money, to be honest with you. We just fell in love with the music and the culture. And that stays true to us no matter what. So I don't think any of us are surprised that the whole world suddenly gone, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And in the entire music fraternity, I think, if I can quote my fiance here, a trigger word would be EDM. right? That's not a word that we would be very in tune with what we do, because EDM sort of has become this blanket for new aged computer based music. We come from the sort of old schooler eras where you would have authentic trance music that came out of Europe, right? The birth of Ibiza kind of paralleled the birth of Goa. And gave rise to music like progressive house, to melodic, to techno, to this kind of evolution where our culture was only about the music and nothing else. That's all it was. So for us, I don't think any of us are surprised. At least for me, I'm extremely pleased with how bankable it's become. And the fact that, look, we're able to now get so many more people into the industry because it's bankable. Earlier, everybody had day jobs, and when I'm saying earlier, I'm not talking 25 years ago. I'm talking 15. I'm talking 12 years ago. In London, most of my partners at Ministry of Sound had day jobs. They were either working in insurance or finance, being London, you're in Canary Wharf in the morning and you're at Ministry of Sound or Fabric in the evening. Right.
Yeah.
That was the reality of the situation. So for the fact that the boom has happened, I think we just want to protect it and want to make sure there's some authenticity still with it. That's the challenge we face at this point.
What is next? You have done Beatport, you have done Ministry of Sound, you have done every possible thing. So what is next for you?
I've had quite a few reinventions. I think it's gone from DJ to record label owner to audio engineer. I got my degree 20 years ago, which again was a huge game changer in my career. And then to be honest with you, I started focusing a lot more on the other sides and the music side of the business side of the music industry, especially with the record label, which is based in London. We ended up signing over 100 artists from the world over. I think we've got artists from 35 countries, if I'm not wrong. So those were the sort of other pillars that I moved on, which then led me into a career of consulting into music, audio, and nightlife. And now for the past 4 years in Dubai, my title is a group director of entertainment and music and nightlife. And, I've worked with great brands like, Red Sea Global and Caesar's Palace, which is kind of like another Ministry of Sound in my heart. For me, which is Caesar's Palace was a very, very special company to work with in terms of leadership and what we could have brought to that entire league. So at the minute, I'm really enjoying the business side of it, where I get to work as a director and a consultant. And I'm currently working on many more projects along the same. One of my last properties 3 months ago just got named Time Magazine's best place in the world. So we're okay. We're not doing too bad. It's fun. It's good fun.
Describe your favorite and least favorite part of being a musician.
Favorite part of being a musician is when you create something original and then you get to play out at a gig and you see that reaction, knowing that this is something you've created from scratch, something that you've wrote, that, you wake up in the morning, you have a crazy idea, you call a friend, and say, can you bring your guitar to the studio? Let's drop something. And then you're able to actually get that across. And seeing that being well received, either in a dance floor or on Spotify, and to hit the numbers that you've had, that's extremely rewarding as a creative. But my least favorite side is, I think, the social media aspect, which is linked to the music industry. Pete Tong's music conference in Ibiza, which finished 2 weeks ago, came out with a shocking report that new musicians and DJs today consider social media 61% more important than the actual craft itself, than music itself, which again, I will go back to my chef analogy going, my food needs to look better than it tastes, which is complete garbage. Nothing can be more important than what you do. That's like me trying to say, you as a journalist, it doesn't matter what you're reporting, just wear a nice suit. It makes no sense, right? And because the world's kind of got really hooked onto this imagery with dance music, right, which is a social media sort of a byproduct. I'm hoping the world's going to correct itself with that. So that's my least favorite time at the minute. But I'm hoping people are intelligent enough to bash through that, to actually really value art for what it is, and especially with what AI is doing at the minute as well. So I think very soon there will be a point where all art, music, film, TV, actual paintings and artwork will have a stamp, like how people are verified. I think it would need to have a stamp of authenticity to say made by a human being or not AI generated. I think that's the next step, to be honest with you.
So does it scare you, AI?
Not at all. Nothing does. because we know what we're capable of. Look, man, this is my 24th year in the business. So there's been a lot of things that have come out that have threatened to completely destroy our career and our industry. And for me personally, that doesn't scare me, because I'm still going to keep doing it. I'm still going to keep writing music. I'm still going to work in the entertainment and music space. I'm not sure how successful I'll be financially because of all these things, but that's the secondary part of it. The reality is I'm extremely fortunate that I've turned my calling and my passion into my career. Right? If I wasn't able to, I would still do what I do today.
My last question to you: a word of advice to the aspiring musicians.
Authenticity. Right now, what's happening with technology, AI, social media, that word is being diluted so far down on various levels and various verticals. So I think a little bit of a reset. I'm an old school guy at heart, right? So no matter what industry you're in, technology, AI, social media, all the new quicker methods we have now are all based and built on the original foundation of your business or your industry. That doesn't change. You still need to make good art. Hard work cannot be substituted, my friend. A computer is not going to be able to do that for you, right? Because there's a billion computers. There's one of you. So I think there's only one way that you're going to be able to do that. So invest in yourself is the first is golden rule. I still go back and I learn. I had Hans Zimmer speaking at a music conference here in Dubai, and I moved hell and high water to make sure I was there to listen to that and to understand and to learn. Because in 24 years, I've learned this much and I've got so much more to go, right? So, and I look at that as an investment into yourself. So that's one, definitely invest in yourself. Authenticity, hard work, man. I mean, the amount of in songwriting, the amount of bad records I've written is phenomenal. And you need those. You need those failures. You need those exercises. You need 10, 12, 16 hours in the studio of you writing garbage to finally find something great. And that's what it takes, right? Use social media well. Don't let it be the be all and end all. So again, good focus. It is again a bit more of advice. So should your music numbers matter more than your Spotify number, more than your Instagram numbers? Yes, 100%. In my opinion, again, right? But there's a lot of evidence to the contrary, where you get a lot of people blowing up on Instagram and then getting a lot of business off the back of it. Fine, great. But what happens in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my question. So I think a little bit of alignment would be really good. And the last thing, which is really important, is have a really good circle of people around you. That applies to any network or any person. I've been extremely blessed with my circle. I've had an extremely supportive mom in the music industry who backed me from day one when I didn't want to do stuff, when I wanted to do stuff, when I wanted to be a DJ, and everyone looked at her going, "What on earth is he thinking? Are you actually going to support him with this?" And she went, "Yep." And then my mom's come and watched me play in front of 40,000 people, 50,000 people. She's been on stage with me.
Crazy,
right? All the awards I've won, she's been there. My mom's come and heard me DJ at Caesar's Palace in Mauritius for music festivals. I think that's been a huge secret guiding point behind me. I'll still be writing music in the studio. I wrote a remix for Jess, who's a 3-time Grammy winner, and my mom was in the back going, "I don't like that piano. Can you change that?" Yeah, okay, cool. All right, change that. So I've been very blessed to have that kind of support and my friend circle, mate. So I think that's something I would very gladly pass on, is find a really good circle. Don't surround yourself with yes men. If you really want to improve, you need to really challenge yourself. And that applies to all walks of life. I have something new that I've created or an album, and I'll send it to my network and I'll go, "Guys, what do you think?" And everyone's going, "Oh, this is great. This is great." I'm not even replying to those messages. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me where I can improve. Tell me, what can I do better? What are you hearing that I'm not? What are you seeing that I'm not? And let me go away and correct that. So that's my little ethos for whatever that's worth.
Very rightly said. Thank you so much, Aneesh. It was lovely talking to you.
Yes, likewise, Saimik. Thank you very much.